Welcome back to part 2 of this teacher career transition story. So if you haven't listened to part 1, head back to our channel and check that out before listening in because we're kicking off right where we left off. If you've already listened to part 1, then let's dive in. I'm Lisa Harding, ex-EdTech CEO turned certified teacher career coach. It wasn't all that long ago that I was recruiting, interviewing, and hiring teachers for roles in corporate America. Teachers that ended up being some of my all-time best employees. Fast forward through my own career transition, where I left my role as CEO to become a stay-at-home mom, I now work with and empower teachers to transform their lives by turning their once distant career dreams into realities. In this podcast, I give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies to help you do the same. If you're a burnt-out teacher or simply need a change and you're looking to create a life you love, you're in the right place, friend. Let's get started. Great question that came in from Ricky. Sorry if not super related, but who do you negotiate salary with? Is it with HR when they offer you a job?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I know this can be very different depending on where you are. So for me, it actually started with the very first interview that I had. So I first just talked to their general HR person before I talked to anyone in marketing, and that's how I got passed through. So she asked me in that section, like what my salary expectations were. And when I told her, she was like, that is above what we're looking for. And I was like, okay, I'm still interested in this position and let's talk as they go through. So HR already knew when I went into that interview with the marketing team that this was one of the things I had asked for. Then when the person who's now my boss, who was the one hiring me, offered me my position and sent me the letter, I went back and forth with him. He was the one that was coordinating with HR at that point of what they can make work and not make work, but I didn't have to go directly to them. I think it helped that they had a little bit of background knowledge about me, knowing that that was an asset I was going to have. But at the end of the day, I did it personally through the person that was hiring me, not from HR, but specifically within my department.
And to touch on that, and I jumped ahead to one of the other slides, in the academy, we have a certified negotiation expert. Her name is Shannon, and she runs the negotiation prep workshops that help all of our teachers prepare for negotiation. And one thing I like that she says is, your negotiation actually starts sometimes when you fill out the application, because now sometimes people ask you your expected salary range. And she also gives you tips and tricks on how to address that question when it comes up, because sometimes, like, what's your expected salary? There are some other ways to answer that that leave it more open-ended, but still professional. And you have them come back with their salary range, so you don't leave anything on the table. And yeah, usually you will negotiate directly with the hiring manager. Now, they may have to go kind of and talk to HR or look at their budget or something, but that negotiation will happen with the person that is hiring you more than likely. But every company could be different. Okay, so that's a great question, and we jumped ahead a little bit to negotiation. Let's answer this question from Beth, and then we'll go on. Then we'll go on to some of the resume questions that have been coming in. Beth said, I will be retiring in the next couple of years, but I still want to work. I do not want to sub. I will be in my late 50s when I retire. Will people just laugh at me if I try to get a new job at that age? I am pretty current on technology and trends. And Beth, that is such a common question that folks get. And that's one of those limiting mindsets that we talk about, which is I'm too old to do anything else. And you absolutely are not. Your skills and experience can be transitioned into a variety of careers. I will say that you did touch on something that I think will be really important, and it's about the technology and trends. So, and Meagan mentioned this, like in marketing, technology and trends are changing all the time. So being up to date on that, I think, will be really critical. I don't think the age matters as much as like your knowledge of different platforms, like Meagan mentioned TikTok and Instagram and all of that. So Meagan, can you kind of touch on how technology, plays a role in the marketing department, and any other comments in reply to Beth?
Yeah. So technology, like it's always changing. And even like, I'm sure you felt that way in teaching. Well, it's the same, honestly, everywhere. So I still use my time, and this is nice. I can do this during the workday where I didn't have the flexibility teaching. I do professional development for myself on that. I am looking at LinkedIn courses. I'm seeing webinars pop up, whether it be on LinkedIn or another site that seem applicable. Like Someone I even grew up with works for a communications firm, and they were doing a webinar on how to connect with influencers. I watched that webinar. It's like any time that you can find that opportunity to just get that next level up on whatever industry or job you're in is worth it. And it's important because things change so quickly. And I will say, I think I am very well versed in technology. And that is one of the things of why in my position they like me so much. Like I'm doing very simple things like organizing Google calendars. And it's like the greatest thing that we've done all week at this point is like we have a streamlined calendar. So little things that you may even take for granted in your own knowledge and abilities are actually like really well received at organizations. And in terms of age, like I don't personally see that, especially where I work. Again, Encyclopedia Britannica is hiring like former teachers. That is who they want. I am seeing people that are getting hired. Not my department hasn't been hiring for the last like since I got hired, but I look at our sales team, they are hiring all the time there. I'm seeing people come in who were taught for 25 years and they just are ready to move on. I'm seeing people like me who weren't there for very long and they just realized it wasn't for them. So to me, I agree. I don't think it's about age. I think that if you are just the right fit for them, you are the right fit for them. And I would not be scared to put your name in there just because of your age.
And don't let us scare you talking about TikTok and Instagram. Because I know sometimes when we hear marketing, we kind of gravitate to social media marketing. But again, there's other roles in marketing. Like our community manager that we hired was a more tenured teacher. She had been teaching for quite some time when she moved over. There's email marketing. That's all copywriting skills. You don't need to know TikTok to get a job in email marketing. Again, marketing analytics. I mean, there is, of course, social media. You're going to have to be super fluent in the TikToks and the Instagram. And I'm not even that. And I could probably not step back into a true marketing role again, even though I did it for so long. There are different roles where you don't need to know any of that either. So great question. And also thank you for asking, because I know that sometimes that can be a sensitive question to ask. So I'm glad that you have asked that. And I'm sure other people were thinking the same thing. All right. I saw a question come in about the resume. I'm going to try to find the exact question here, but Meagan, tell us a little bit about, like, we know that we have to identify transferable skills and rewrite them to be like applicable in the corporate world. And in the academy, I'm really excited that we have that list of the 202 resume bullet points that are already rewritten for folks. But in your experience, what advice do you have when putting together your resume for a marketing job?
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I know this is probably not what everyone wants to hear, but it is the truth of like, you just have to personalize them. So for me, I knew that I wanted to be in ed tech because I knew I wanted to stay in education. And I knew based on my skills and interests, I wasn't dead set on marketing. I was okay with actually a few different roles within the ed tech space. So I made sure that I had just like a basic resume and cover letter for all of the different roles I was thinking of. So marketing was one of them, but I even thought about like more specific roles if they were looking for a social media specific person or an email specific person. I had resume templates for all of those. And I actually started that with just like, I took my one resume that I had and I just built out a ton of bullet points in it, thinking about every avenue that I could think of. And then I would copy and paste just like the 3 or 4, depending on the position I was trying to highlight, the most important things that I thought were the most relevant. So for example, when I was thinking about marketing, I was thinking about the creative aspects. Like they may not care that I grew my kids in reading that year, but that they did care about is that I was hand making all of my own slides, because that is something I literally do in my role every day now, is I make slides for our sales team. So what I tried to do is I would read every single job description. I would literally look at like, what are the overall trends of this role? I would go to my master template. I would copy and paste the bullet points that I thought were relevant, maybe even tailor them up a little bit more. And I would build a custom resume for literally every single job I applied to. It took more time, but it definitely saved time in the end of like, a company can tell when you're just sending in a basic resume. They're also using like AI tools. If you are not including the words that they're including in their job description, it's not likely that your resume is even getting passed on because of the way that they're reviewing them. So you have to have them custom to the job that you are looking at if you want to make the most traction. Like there is a spray and pray method, sure, that may work eventually, but I honestly think that quality is better than quantity when it's coming to resumes, because the more quality ones you put out, the more likely that one of those is going to stick rather than just like 100 basic ones.
If you are a member of the academy, you've probably gone through the resume module already. You know that it is pretty much spot on with everything that Meagan has said, how the expert walks you through putting everything together, making sure it's ATS friendly, and really customizing it. And then there is kind of a follow-up to the resume workshop by one of our coaches, Reba, who I think she is here live with us tonight, which is awesome. And I love this technique that she does. She shows the Academy members how to take the job description and turn it into a word cloud so you can see the weighted words of which words and phrases pop up the most throughout the entire job description. And I think that's just a really fun and interesting way to take a fresh perspective of looking at the job description and your resume. And I know that extra work really helped you, Meagan, because, getting a turnaround of a job in 3 months is one of the quickest that we've heard. Most folks are saying, in the industry, 6 to 9 months to get a job, and it can be longer for career transitioners. So I know your period was, at least of actively looking, was very short. So I'm sure that definitely helped you. And what about your cover letter, Meagan? Did you tailor that for each particular job as well, or did you even use one?
Yep. So even when it said that one was optional, my background in college was communication. So I think I was just used to being like, every time I applied to a job fresh out of college, like before I realized that I was going into teaching, like I had to do a cover letter. So for me, I saw that as it may take a little bit of work, but this is just like one extra thing that could set me apart. So I put a cover letter on almost every single one, unless it literally, like some said, do not, like we're not going to read it. So then I wouldn't. But I did. I tailored the cover letters as well. And I did the same thing where it was like, I had each paragraph of knowing the types of things I could write. I had a bunch of sample sentences, very easy, especially as a teacher, to copy paste and add some transition words in there and then make it a cover letter. And same thing, I love the word cloud idea. I wish that I had used that. That would have made my job a whole lot easier when I was trying to tailor these. But look for those buzzwords, because that at the end of the day, when they are scanning, whether it's themselves or a computer, they're looking for the words of the things that they know they need. So a cover letter is just one more chance to do that. And I think what's nice about a cover letter is you can tell more of a story rather than just like some action items. So it gives them a way to also kind of see your personality. And I did a lot of reading about like, what are today's cover letter and resume tips and tricks. When I read a lot of too with cover letters is don't be afraid to be creative with them. Like they get so many standard ones in that if yours does stick out, like sticking out is a good thing. So even if your cover letter is like a little bit more taboo, people like that because it's a way that they remember you. And to take a crowd of people and have to limit them based on what they send in, it's just one extra way that you can be sent down in that funnel to the next step.
And I'm a big proponent of that. Part of my background is professional copywriting for work. And when we were figuring out, how to help Academy members with their cover letter, like, well, I personally spent a ton of time on my own cover letter. My cover letter helped me get an interview at Google once, which I feel like is probably one of, and like Google, like in California, like the main deal. I was very proud of going through that interview process. I'm like, all right, well, if it got Google's attention, it's good enough for the Academy. So we do have a template in there for you. We walk you through how to fill it out. And kind of like Meagan said, it's professional, but it's a little bit different. As a recruiter myself, when I was, hiring for different departments throughout the years, I get the same old, lots of text, lots of words. It's like, you want to use a lot of white space. You want to use a lot of copywriting techniques. So we have that template in there for you as well. Here's a great question that we always have to touch on, Meagan. What tools and programs do you use in your everyday, in your role? Today's episode is sponsored by the Teacher Career Transition Academy. Are you eager to explore new possibilities but find yourself unsure of where to start? Look no further than our Teacher Career Directory. Available for free, this comprehensive resource features over 200 careers tailored for transitioning teachers. Dive into detailed insights, including average U.S. salary ranges, occupational outlooks, and even a personalized skills and interests inventory. Download now at teachercareertransitionacademy.com/directory. I'll also drop the link in the show notes of this episode. So don't miss out and claim your free directory today at teachercareertransitionacademy.com/directory.
So for my specific position?
Yes.
So my company uses Google Suites. So I am in, whether it's Slides, Docs, Excel, like all of the Google tools. We personally use Asana for our actual tracking of work. So most companies are going to have some type of system in there that allows you to like put your task, manage your tasks. So we use that. And that also helps if we're looping back to like KPIs. That's how a lot of companies measure their KPIs is through whatever system they're using to track their work. So I'm in Asana every single day. I am personally in Canva every day because, like I said, I am the one on my team responsible for social media, and I am sometimes designing those. So I am in Canva most days. And then from Hootsuite, or from social media perspective, I'm in Hootsuite every day. That's where I do all my scheduling and my analytics behind social media. But outside of like our general Google, which is going to capture like most of the work that I'm doing, again, presentations, slides, decks. I love, as Lisa knows as well, I love a color-coded Excel sheet because I love data. So I do a lot in there of like with the customers that we have, analyzing their usage of the accounts to figure out which ones are going well and which ones we should do some more marketing for. So I would say those are probably the most ones that I'm using. Again, every company is going to be a little bit different, but a lot of creation tools. No, mostly just creation tools and then tracking tools is what I'm using.
Okay. The last part of the academy that I want to touch on, and we already talked a little bit about how your negotiation went. Any tips or advice for interviewing specifically in this field?
Yeah. I do deep dives every whatever company, whatever people I'm talking to. It's important to try to figure out who you are going to actually be interviewing with in your department because you can go and look at their LinkedIn. So what I did is I went through, so I knew that my now boss was the one interviewing me. I read through his LinkedIn. I looked at even he had like that he was the president of his HOA and that he used to run youth groups. So I knew like what was also important to him. So not that I was trying to fake who I was in the interview, but I was trying to look at who they were and think about what inside of me could relate to them and who they are as like a person and try to connect to them on that level too. So I found out my boss had a side photography business and photography is like one of my other passions in life. So we were able to connect with each other on a personal level. I could give you all the tips in the world for actually preparing for an interview, but I think at the end of the day, it's just letting your true self shine because that's who they're hiring. They can hire anyone likely to do the roles that you're looking for, but they're looking for the right person. So in my opinion, when I'm thinking about interviewing, I'm thinking about how can I connect with this person? I know that I'm going to showcase that I can be good at their job, but I need to leave a lasting impression of who I am and why they want to work with me and why I am the best candidate for them out of everyone else that they're going to have a conversation with. So I just went to what I knew to do as a teacher, and that's to build relationships. And I built relationships with every person on that call to the point that when I got hired and I stepped into that role, I feel like I had known some of these people for a while, even though I had like one 30-minute connection with them. Always, and as well, if I can end with anything, always connect with them on LinkedIn afterwards. Like send that personal note. It was great chatting with you. Like can't wait to chat with you next. So like anything that you can do to just have that next touch point, build that relationship with that person, that's how you get remembered.
And speaking of LinkedIn, someone was asking if you could drop a link to your profile. So
Yeah,
maybe once we get to the Q&A, we
absolutely.
have time to do that. If you could drop that in for us. I do want to, we have a few more things to cover, but I did want to do a last call for questions, just to make sure we round those up from everyone and we respect everyone's time. And I know there are also some questions about the Academy in general, how you can join. There was an anonymous question earlier that I just answered over text. Is her job remote? And you said it was 100% remote.
Yep.
Let's see here. Oh, Megan, she did just send a link to her LinkedIn profile. Megan, such a great time chatting with you tonight. Okay, could you give a specific example on how you built a relationship with the interviewers during the interview?
Yeah. So I think the one that I kind of touched on already was because I was able to look at the person interviewing me and know that they, again, on their LinkedIn profile, they used to do wedding photography. So I found a way in when I was talking about marketing, I found a way to talk about photography and how that's a passion and interest of mine. And that is what like naturally sparked conversation in that. I'm thinking about the other people that I interviewed with. So for my interview, I first interviewed with our director. Then I interviewed with some of the members of my team who are the people that I work with closest, most closely now. And it was honestly the same process. I went through and I just kind of got a well-rounded sense of like who they were, where do they go to school, where do they live now, what past jobs, if they had any, did they have that could align to something about them. And then I just thought myself, like, how can I integrate this into my conversation? So I'm thinking about my next interview that I had with some of my teammates. There was a girl from Chicago who this was actually her first job right out of school. And then there was another girl, this is her second job right out of school, but she used to work for a clothing company of someone that like I really admired. So I found a way to like naturally bring them up in conversation. And then she brought up how she used to work there. And then we honestly got sidetracked from the interview and just kind of started talking about life. And then got back into the interview. And then I will say there was one in this interview. She was the toughest cookie to crack. And now that I know her personally, I can see why she was so tough to crack there. But I did any research that I could on who are these people and how can I start building relationships. So I'm thinking like a specific example. This is always an easy one, honestly. Anytime anyone has either children or pets, you can always relate to children and pets. One girl brought up her dog and I was like, tell me about your dog. I have 2 dogs at home. My dogs sit on the side. Take what you do in teaching, apply it to adults in a job interview, and it's going to be the same thing. It's just finding those little things that you can connect on. So I'm not sure if that was like a specific enough example for you. If it wasn't, please LinkedIn message me and I will like give a full paragraph of like whatever information you need on how exactly I did it. I think one quick thing I should mention as well, since you brought it up, Lisa, was I do work fully remotely, but my job is actually posted as hybrid. So I would not be afraid to also apply to things that are under hybrid. Like it may not actually work out, but my job put everything through as hybrid, which means they wanted someone in person and at home. I don't live even in the same state as where Encyclopedia Britannica is, but they still, because I was the right candidate, they told me this was not a sticking point. And if I'm the right person, they're going to make it work. So obviously it wouldn't work for an on-site role likely, but if someone says hybrid and you're not in the area, I would not be afraid to put your name in because if they like you, they're probably going to make it work.
Awesome. A follow-up question. How did you find out who was going to interview you? Did you ask the main recruiter?
Yes, I did. So the main recruiter who did my first interview, I asked her for next steps at the end of the call and she said, you'll have another interview. And I just asked with who? She told me it's the director of the apartment. She didn't give me his name. LinkedIn is a beautiful place, everyone. I went on to LinkedIn. I typed in the title of who she told me at that company and up popped my boss. So then I immediately knew it must be Brian interviewing me because he's the only person with this title at this company. So I did ask, but I didn't ask for their name. I just asked for their title and I did some digging from there.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. And don't ever hesitate to ask those types of questions. And always end with, can you tell me the next steps? Because I think that's really important. Here's kind of a comment / question from Victoria, Megan. She says, I'm retired military, retiring from teaching after 39 years. I've been doing SPED transition classes, Wolf program, which I'm not personally familiar with, Megan, and project search. I teach soft skills. Is there a place for me? Any comments for Victoria?
I think there's a place for everyone everywhere. So absolutely yes. Like, I mean, first of all, thank you for all the amazing work that you've done over all these years. Like you probably have more experiences than most of us here on this call combined. So I think as long as you can tap into who you are and just know how to be like, this is me and this is why I am the perfect candidate for you. Like there's a space for you anywhere. My advice would be knowing that you have so many skills in life, like focus on what you've liked the best and find something within that role and you will find a place for you. Like there is a role out there for you somewhere. And that's what I kept telling myself is like, it does feel frustrating. Like I know how exhausting and frustrating that it can feel when you're in that transition and you feel like it's going nowhere, but things will work out and they will work out in the way that they are supposed to. So don't be afraid to try it. I absolutely recommend that you try it. The worst thing is maybe it wasn't your favorite. You find something new.
Well, and I always like to say at the end of these, it's okay to walk away from some of these thinking, I don't think EdTech marketing is for me, because that's part of the exploration process. You have to learn about things and cross things out. So hopefully you gained a lot of great information tonight, whether or not you are going to go into EdTech marketing or not. Well, friends, that concludes another inspiring teacher career transition story. Whether you're left feeling certain that this career path is your next calling, or you can cross it off your list, I know you're walking away with valuable insights to take with you. If you want to access even more stories like these, there's an entire library of teacher career transition stories within the Teacher Career Transition Academy under the Career Exploration module of the program. If you're interested in learning more about the Academy, I'll drop a link in the show notes. And don't forget to check out our podcast channel for other great advice from our coaches and experts. Until next time, remember friends, the journey is just the beginning. Embrace the adventure.